Hey everybody, Mike here. So for a long time I've wanted a nice whetstone sharpening set for my knives, and I got this for Christmas, and truthfully I'm just now getting this thing out of the box and learning how to use this. Now this is something I've never owned before, but have always wanted a nice way to sharpen my knives. And I've always had those cheaper little gadgets that have the two blades and a V and you kind of just drag them through. While they do work and accomplish the task at hand, I've always felt like they've kind of made the knife edge a little more jagged where it tears instead of cuts. And after a bunch of research, I kind of landed on this one, and this is the one I asked for. Let me get all these parts out of the box here real quick. We'll take a look at this together here. I have already used this once. I'm still kind of learning how all the parts and pieces work together, but I feel like I learned quite a bit here the first time using this. I thought I'd go ahead and explain this to you real fast in case you're in the same boat I was, to kind of show you what you're getting into. So this is what you get in the kit. Each of these has a purpose, which I'll try to briefly describe to you real quick. So you get your little bamboo block here, and that is basically to set your whetstone on top of. It's got a rubber surface on the bottom, which will kind of help keep it from moving around while you're running your knife over it. Now each of these stones has two different grits, which is notated by the different colors. On this one here, you've got 3,000 grit and 800 grit. And then on this blue stone, you've got 400 grit and 1,000 grit. If you've never really been into sandpaper and how the numbers work, the smaller the number, the coarser the grit. If you had a knife blade that was really needing some work, had a lot of burrs in it, you'd want to start with this 400 because that's going to be the roughest. And then eventually you'd want to end up at your 8,000 grit, which is your yellow, and that's going to be more of a polishing stone, so to speak. Now each of these have a rubber insert as well that you'll slide into your bamboo, and that kind of helps isolate your stone as you're dragging your knife across that thing. Now for testing purposes, and for me just trying to learn how this thing worked the first time, I went ahead and just wet down the one stone, which is the one I got right here in the bamboo block. And I wanted to just go through and test a couple of my cheap kitchen knives that we've had for years. So just in case I screwed something up, it wasn't going to be on an expensive knife that my wife was going to get mad at me about. I had a few of these older knives like this one here that, in all honesty, we probably should have thrown out a long time ago. We haven't been able to decide on which knife set we want to get, so we've just kept these in the drawer. I am going to go ahead and tell you, though, that while this knife was still working pretty decent, I'm sure I could work on this a little more and get it better, but now I can run this knife through this paper pretty much with ease. Which that's not necessarily the best test, but it does kind of give you an indicator, because before when I was trying to run that through, it was just dragging on the paper and I couldn't even make a cut. So the first thing you want to do when you take this kit out and to get it all set up, you want to immerse this block in a little tub or bowl of water, and you want to do that for about 5 to 10 minutes. And what that's going to do, you'll see a bunch of air bubbles kind of rising to the top. When those air bubbles stop, that's when you know your stone's ready and prepped for you to start wet sanding. When that block gets completely immersed in the water, you're pre-wetting that stone down because you're essentially going to be wet sanding these knives. And in fact, while you're running your knife over your block, you're going to constantly be putting some water on top of that and keeping that stone wet. Now, the other things that are in this kit here are this little angle guide, and I found this to be extremely handy, at least for now while I'm a beginner, to kind of help me find my angle when I'm dragging my knife across this block. Now, I have seen several reviews from other folks when I was doing my research that say after a while you can get rid of that guide and you kind of learn where you need to hold your knife and you figure out how to hold your hand to where you can get that right every time. But this is a great thing for beginners to keep in mind. The other thing you've got in here is a leveling stone. So after a while, when you've been running your knives across this stone, you'll start to get an uneven surface. Well, if you got big marks or whatever, you've got this little grinding stone here that you can run across, and that'll kind of help fix any large imperfections you may have. But this one here is a leveling stone, and you'll want to do this while both blocks are wet. But you basically just run this thing back and forth for several minutes until your stone is basically back to a flat surface again. It's basically just taking off the top layer of material, putting you back on a level surface, and then you can go back to running your knives across again. It does come with a little instruction manual. I found this to be pretty handy when I was first kind of getting going. It kind of gives you the basics as to what you need to do. Some of it comes down to just technique as you're learning. And then you've got your leather strap here, also called, I believe, a stropping strap. And I had a hard time figuring out how to actually use this because you're trying to figure out how to hold it and do the knife back and forth on it. What I ended up doing was taking this clip right here, hooking it to my belt, and then holding it out in front of me. And then I was able to run my hand back and forth on this belt to kind of finish polishing the knife and getting that up to a smooth edge. Now, like I said, I think I could probably do just a little bit better if I had spent more time on this, but I honestly think for the first time doing this and not really knowing what I was doing, it made a night and day difference to this knife. So I went ahead and took a chance after I got done playing with these knives here, and I've had this knife in my pocket for years now, and this knife's got a little bit of sentimental value to me. It was given to me by my brother-in-law before he passed away, and I didn't want to get rid of this knife, but I also didn't want to damage the blade, so I've kind of just held on to it. And I went ahead and took a chance and decided to sharpen this blade as well while I was at it, while also trying to make sure I kept away from the serrated edge and just doing the straight edge. And that thing made a night and day difference. I was able to bring this knife back to life as well, which made me really happy because I didn't really want to buy a new knife yet. but now I can sit here and run this across this paper, and it cuts it pretty well as well. It wouldn't even cut paper to begin with when I first started. I'm gonna spend a little more time on these knives and see if I can get these edges just a little sharper. I think I can do better. Like I said, it all kind of comes down to practice in the end anyways. The more time you spend with it, the better you're gonna get. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful for you. I know I was looking for a review like this when I went to purchase this kit, and I found some of the reviews lacking. I'm hoping I did it justice and showing you what this thing's capable of. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch though, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.